I'm your co-host, one of your co-hosts, Dr. Sherelle Hobson. And first, I want to say thank you for continuing to support us over the last 2 years. And Brian started wondering, like, what's going on with my introduction? But um, we want to thank you for continue to support us, share the stories, going to our YouTube, sharing the YouTube channel. We just thank you so much for doing that. You know that you are supporting not only the Black podcast, but our community. And the only way for us to grow is to share, share, share. So please make sure that you're sharing these videos of our guests and that you're going back and supporting our guests and what they're doing. The Black Podcast has been on for 2 years, and of course, you know it is the daughter or the son of our company HSBA, where we'll talk more about that towards the end. But we really aim to change the narrative of young Black men, and especially just in our community as a whole as well. You know, what can we do? What are some things that we can do, or we can share our stories more, so that people can understand the journey, right? And we know that behind every uh, glory is a story. And so we go and we find these guests for you because we look at their lives and why they're doing the things that they're doing and how long they've been in the game and what keeps them going. Those are the stories that we have to hear. So even though you may not feel you're in that space or you need that information, you never know who's in your circle. So please make sure you do your job and share the Black podcast every Thursday. Now, sometimes we are on different days, but anyways, my background is in sports administration and education, and so I've been in it for 17 years. And I linked up with my partner here, where he had a background in social work and psychology, and so we knew that we had these similar conversations around what goes on in the Black community. And we started noticing that the issues and the challenges that we saw in education was the same challenges that we saw um, in our community as a whole, or in the system, what they would call it. And so we decided to create this space so that we could share more stories. And coming from just a different background and a different space, it's amazing how you're able to come together to create something, you know, created for a masterpiece for other people to learn and grow from. So thank you again for being a part of the Black Podcast. And we love you. Continue to support us. And before our guests come on, we want to make sure that everyone's doing their job in sharing.
Yep. Share it out. Don't be the black hole of information. You know, for those of you who've been watching for a while, you know that we share some pretty solid information. So let's make sure that we push it out to the masses. Dr. Um, drawing a blank, Dr. Claude Anderson. He used to be over the Department of Education in Florida some years back, and he has what he calls the five-story building approach to rebuilding the Black community. And I want to say it's like the third floor where he speaks about the Black media. So we are a part of the Black media as far as we are controlling the narrative of what people are receiving when it comes to our community. Whereas if you typically look at the mainstream news, you're going to see us so often in a negative light. So we like to make sure that people understand that we are so much more than what mainstream news shows us. And me working in the social work and a lot of these different spaces where I'm encountering people that go through difficulties in life, I get to open up their vulnerabilities and find what's the root of what's going on. And once I get to the root, I get to show them how they could uproot that issue and reframe their perspective to look at life differently and start to attack life and receive different results. And then I'm able to spread that news forward. But if we just look at those surface behaviors and that's the only thing that gets reported on, we're only seeing a shell of what we have to offer. So one of the reasons why I love coming to do this show every week is we get to learn a little bit new, a little bit more about someone new that's doing great things in our community. So you can always go to my website, Your Legacy Begins Now, to read up more about me, what I'm doing, so on and so forth. But I want this remainder of this time to be about this gentleman before us today. And without further ado, we bring to you Dr. Theo Fowles. Fowles, right?
That's correct. You
All
got
right,
it.
now. can't get it mispronunciated. So welcome to the show, my guy.
Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're gonna dive right into it, all your business. Like I said earlier, behind every glory is a story, and we like to know where it all started, where you're from, and the dynamics of your family. If you can kind of share that journey with us.
Sure. So I was born in New York at a mighty 2 pounds. I was a preemie. I have two older sisters and a younger brother. Um, and my mom actually passed away at an early age for me and for her. She passed away when I was 9, and like many in the black family, you got some of that might scoop you up. And so for me, that was my aunt and uncle that raised both my brother and I. We went from living in the New York City area to living in the Chicago area, and through that journey to the Midwest, got introduced to a pathway to education. Of my siblings, I'm the one that not only graduated from college but went all the way to the end. I was like, "How many more degrees can I get?" I think I'll stop at this last one. They was like, "You can't even get any more." So, before all of that, they were definitely the ones that introduced me to um, the idea that there's other things out there. The fact that um, when I was in high school, and my friends were getting summer jobs, and I wanted to get a summer job. My aunt was the one that sat me down and said, "Hey, there's these things called scholarships, and you're a pretty good writer. And if you write things, people might give you money for school because we don't have it. So you got to find a way to get it." And so that kind of set me on the path to apply for scholarships. And through just one summer of applying to various scholarships, I was able to pay for 4 years of education at the University of Southern California, where I ended up doing my undergrad degree in film and media. And then from there, kind of really found my pathway in learning how to tell stories, and that's kind of translated into me. And what I do now is telling stories in the classroom. As a professional in my professional career, I started off in the classroom teaching high school, ninth grade. Then I was teaching 10th and 11th grade back in New York as well. And then I moved into the campus space. I went back to my alma mater and was working with Black students on campus and helping them navigate campus. They got there. Now we're gonna see if
They're
they're
gonna
gonna get
stay
through.
there. Yeah.
Right? Can you stay there, and can you graduate and be successful there? And so I had some mentors that coached me along the way through that process. And now currently I work with first generation college students, helping them navigate school, but also the concept of getting internships and finding mentors as well that can kind of guide you in your career path. So I would say that all started by my first essays, sitting down in that summer, sophomore and junior year of high school. So that's just a little bit about my overarching story, um, but lots in the middle of that we could talk about as well.
Okay, cool. We definitely want to talk about the stuff in the middle as well. Um, you know, when you talked about like the very beginning, you spoke about your journey as being young and having the choice of going outside and playing and having to do something different. In our community, especially being around sports my whole life, that is a big part of our community. Is you got to go outside, you got to find something to do, get
Hmm.
outside, enjoy, be with your friends, get out the house. So go talk a little bit about that journey where it's like you're still a kid. Was there ever like a why can't I go outside? I mean, you was already transitioning from being
Hmm.
with another family. So I'm sure there was some something going on there with you, and then kind of your childhood, maybe being, I don't know if it feels like it was stripped, or were you on board with it, but I want you to talk more about that journey um, for us.
Yeah. So I think so to tell a little bit more about myself, I mentioned that I came out the womb 2 pounds, right? Part of that process is that I have cerebral palsy, which is a condition that uh, makes me walk with a different gait than everybody else. Some folks have different levels of mobility with cerebral palsy, right? And so, um, just growing up, I understood the concept of having to adapt. And so I knew I couldn't do everything that everybody else was doing. But in terms of sports, I was like, look, I grew up in the 90s in Chicago area. Oh, Bulls all day, right? And I ended up playing wheelchair basketball. One of my options for school was to potentially play for the University of Arizona. They have a great wheelchair basketball team. So the concepts and the opportunities were still there. Again, it's about choices, right? And so I think for me, um, you know, I learned early the concept of chosen family, moving around a little bit. I knew that, I wouldn't always have, some siblings close by, or I might not always live in the same neighborhood, but I could pick and choose qualities of different people that I wanted to hang around. And so I think that that's a concept and idea that I got early versus some folks get that when they go off to school and when they enter the workforce. I think that I got that a little bit early. But in terms of not, I would say doing some of the stereotypical things that one might expect um, in terms of how we navigate as a community. I would say. I also was raised. Um, I'm a preacher's kid, right? So we was in church, sun up and sun down. I was folding bulletins, and so I definitely didn't want to do that all the time. But it guarded me a little bit in terms of uh, my access to what I could and couldn't do, and where I was gonna go and was not gonna go. So all of those things kind of played a role into you know, my future decisions in terms of where I wanted to go to school and why, who I wanted to meet and how that navigation process happened for me.
Wow. When I look up your name, and God's gift, is your name, and they talk about how your name symbolizes just bold people and brave people. And I mean, just from the beginning, just as soon as you started talking, that's what I felt like. This is a bold, brave man. And before you even spoke about, you know, everything else, what you just shared with us right now, we would have never known, right? I mean, because you're
Mhm,
smiling, you're talking about your journey, and it's just like this
mhm.
is just what it is. And uh, I know along the way there was, challenges. And so, what were those conversations that you gave yourself, or what? Who is that? Was it a person? Was it you? Like, how were you able to say at some point, this is what it is? I'm gonna make the best out of my situation. I mean, where did you get that from? Because that's a gift in itself. Um,
Yeah, I think you know, my mom wasn't here physically with us for a long time, I would say, but I think there's things that I remember um, that she did with me that I hold on to, right? So for example, growing up, she would put me at the top of the stairs, and I'll have to figure out how to get down the stairs, right? Stairs for me at the very beginning were hard to do. I was like, how do I navigate this? But the process of being able to sit with a problem and then figure it out and do it in a way that works for you It's something that has worked for me in any organization that I've ever been a part of. It's helped me navigate through school, right? And just address issues in general. Is being able to sit with something, analyze it, understand what's wrong, and then figure out how for myself, um, it's gonna work, right? The solution that I come up with to get down the stairs or to get up the stairs may look different than somebody else, and I have to be okay with it looking different, right? And so if I think about, as I work with, students and young professionals, sometimes that it's not, the idea of not looking at something the way everybody else does, or getting to the destination a little bit differently than someone else did. All those things could be roadblocks, but for me, it
Mm,
was a subconscious thing where I was okay with it because it was instilled early. And I
awesome.
think the other thing that sticks with me is that you have to have someone that tells you potentially what you're up against, so
Yeah.
that uh, when you come face to face with an issue or a circumstance or a system, that you can recognize it, right? And so I mentioned that I spent a summer or two writing scholarship essays and things like that, and my aunt, uh, she said, "Hey, be get good at sharing your story. You're young, you're black, you're male, you're handicapped. These are all things that are part of your identity. You can use them to your advantage, right, and share your story, or you can be like most people, and most people might say that those things are a hindrance, right?
Mm,
That they're an obstacle to overcome, or
mhm,
obstacle that you might not be able to get past, right?
mhm,
And so, just like Brian, you were saying, we're controlling our narratives. Like we can internalize what somebody else says about us, right?
mhm,
Or we can show them, or we can tell them like how we've navigated those things. And so
mhm.
I think for me, being aware of those different identities early and learning to craft them and put them in my own story, um, has been a part of my success, again, from start to finish, in my career so far.
But that's awesome, and I'm just gonna kind of segue a little bit into when you got into um, college. Speak about that journey when you were transitioning there. Did you already know, um, you know, what you wanted to do, and how was the college life for you? Do you feel like it was a good experience? Was it a bad experience? Like,
Yeah.
people think of like college, they get there, girls, this, that, parties,
Hmm.
talk about that journey for us. And
You,
then,
you you want the whole scoop.
I mean,
Um,
I want all of
so
it.
yeah, I was excited to go to college, right? Growing up in the Chicago area, a lot of my friends, if they were going to school, they were going to school in the Midwest. They went to schools like University of Illinois, or one of my best friends went to Ohio State. And I was like, I'm going to California. And people were like, wow, you going far. Like, you get on a plane, like all of those things were were exciting for me. Um, and my major was film, and I knew that going in ahead of time. But the things I that made me excited about film were simple things like, I was the one that was holding the video camera when when we had home barbecues and parties and things like that. I was holding the camera, or when we were watching movies, at the movie theater or in the basement trying to stay cool. Like, I was the one that was like, I ain't seen this movie before, but this is how the story is gonna end. Like, I was guessing it, and I was like, if I can guess these stories, I can go and make my own movies in film school. And so uh needless to say, University of Southern California was a very different place. It was real white. I was like, look. So
Real
going into those
white.
film classes for the first time, they was talking about movies I ain't never seen, and and then you sit in class and you have a person to your left and a person to your right, and they like, I shot my first feature film when I was 15, and we funded it by doing this, and I'm like, I got these home movies I was real excited about. But in
On the
those
CD.
scenarios, you find out you know you find
Yeah.
out about inequities that you weren't
Mhm.
thinking about before,
Yeah.
right? So for me, those classes were real challenging, real exciting, but it put me in a space that I wasn't expecting, right? And in my college career, I was able to find some mentors in the space, to throw it back just a little bit, right? I one of my first internships was was for a company called Urban Entertainment, and they were working on the film Undercover Brother uh, back in the day, and it was great because we had found this thing called the internet, and we were breaking the mold because Undercover Brother was an animated series, and they were going to release an episode each week on the internet, and that was the big wave, that was the big move, and those episodes end up being part of the live action movie that Eddie Griffin did, right? So it kind of shows you where in time and where in space, I was in school for film. So that was kind of that. But outside of my major, oh man, the community that I was able to build and the friends that I have through school, I'm still friends with a lot of folks that I met through school. Got to shout out my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Spring '03 Solo Ace Club. Shout out to the aces out there. Uh, but I say all that to say, college is one of the best spaces to build community. In that, once you leave the college space, um, it's hard to get people back together in various professions, right? On your left, you might have someone that is an architect. On your right, you might have somebody that's a business major. Behind you, you might have, um, a world class, musician. But once you leave that space, everybody's dispersed. So your accountancy, all your accountants have accountant friends, and it's hard to get people back, right? And so,
Yeah.
you know, I tell folks when they're thinking about going to school as an option, there's lots of options out there, but I definitely believe in social capital, right? And social capital is just having the diversity of people in and around you that you can profit off of those connections, right?
Right.
You know a multitude of people in order for you to get to where you want to go, your goals, right? And so for me, college definitely did that. Um, you know, I definitely found out that people were different than me, but I'm also different than others.
Yeah.
And I also just met people that I would have never met, right? Um, One thing I knew about myself, right? Uh, I love my people, but I was like, look, if I'm around a bunch of my people, I'm gonna be distracted. I'm gonna be too excited. I ain't gonna be focused. I'm gonna be at the party, right? And so for me, it was helpful to not only create Black community on campus, right, and be a part of the Black community on my campus, but also to be like, all right, now that we done kicked it, I have a space where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go focus.
Yeah.
At 18, I didn't know much, but I knew that if we was all in the room, nobody was gonna get no work done, at least for me.
Right.
So,
Oh, wow. Thank you. I appreciate it. You said it was real white. You look to your left, it was like real
right, it's true.
Something that you keep making reference to, and really just telling your story from the beginning. I'm sitting here like, that's traumatizing when you mention, about losing your mom, but you got this big old smile on your face. And I'm thinking, yeah, he does have optimist in his bio. And that's one of the things that regardless of what's up against you, regardless of what you're going through, and this is one thing I work with a lot of my clients on is it's so often that we forecast unintentionally a gloomy life because of our perspective as to what we're currently going through. Whereas if we realize that our today, what we're experiencing today, is a result of how we thought, act, felt about what happened and what we're going through in the past. If we really were able to grasp that as a mass, we could make the future so much brighter for ourselves. There's so many things that I myself also have been through, where people when I tell them about, like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's part of what made me who I am today. So when I was working on my master's degree, I got this nickname, Mr. Positivity, because no matter what was going on, I always threw a positive twist. So, okay, how can I play this to my favor? How can I play this to my favor? Where everybody else just complaining, making excuses left and right. So that caused a little bit of friction in my cohort because of that, component of me. And I actually here on my wall, I have the Optimist Creed. So there's all these different statements on how to maintain optimism.
Got some
So share
affirmations
with
in there.
me, going through your life, yeah, going through your life, regardless of what you had gone through, how were your experiences being that guy that's optimistic regardless of what's going on?
I mean, honestly, I don't think I was the person that was optimistic all the time. I think for me, um, I mean, it doesn't really make sense to be optimistic all the time. But what I will say is that um, everybody has something, right? Like everybody has whatever hurdle it is gonna be for them. They have it, right? And I always tell my students, everybody's got their something, right? For me, it's gonna be X. For you, it's gonna be Y. The the thing about my thought process has always been that top of the staircase mentality, right? There's this issue. The issue not gonna go away. So what are we gonna do about it? Right. And so I think that that proactive kind of mindset is what folks might think of as positivity, right? Because when you get in the gloom and you get in the muck and all that, like you sit in it, right? And when you sit in it, you can't move, you're not going forward, you might get pushed back, right? Because you're not moving. But for me, um, it's always been about like how can I move forward, or not even move forward. I might have to move left or move right, right? But that movement of doing something about situations, it might not be the that you did the right thing, right? You might have did the wrong thing and learned a lesson, right? But I think that is the important thing, right? Is that everybody has an opportunity to do something with their issue, with their problems, right? A lot of times you'll hear from us and in the social work space, there's people like stuff things deep down, they don't bring it back up again. Or what happened, that's still an activity. It's still sitting there. You ain't did nothing about it,
Hmm.
right? And that's when things become toxic, right? Or that's when people become bitter or blinded by, oh, it's always been this way. Well, it's always been this way because you ain't never did nothing about it, right? And so, um, you know, that's what I think about in terms of the perspective that I have. So,
Wow. I'm something you said.
Yeah,
something you said.
no,
Oh,
I
sorry.
was just gonna say I appreciate that because so many people assume. like that it's always positivity. So they throw that label at you. But really, it's just, I'm not about to sit here and complain about it if I can't change it. I'm not about to sit here and stress over it if I can't change it. If I can change it to one degree or another, I'm going to process it. I might stop, be frustrated, but I'm going to process it while I'm
Mhm.
frustrated. And then I'm going to take action towards changing it for the better instead of being one that just complains. Being in the social workspace, we get a lot of people in our profession. All they want to do is protest and tell somebody else to change it for them, but they don't want to do the work to actually bring about the change. And that's how I differed from a lot of my, my colleagues. So yeah, just going into problem solving mode. So I appreciate you sharing that because it's a third party kind of validating some of the things that I let people know. And this kind of ties into it as well. When people are going through negative or deep situations, it's so often that you will hear someone that really isn't as adept to the whole psychological principles and such that will say, just be positive, just think, be optimistic about it. No, you're diminishing their experience, their feelings. So one of the things that I start, to work with some of my clients on is, I'm not about to just tell you, just think positive, but let's talk about what you're going through. After we talk about it, now consider the alternative. So you know what the situation looks like, you know how you feel. So whatever you feel that the alternative is, let's think about that, and then we can start navigating towards that. So I put it in their court to choose, what speed or right, what direction they're going to go in, without telling them just think positive.
Hmm. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah,
And I was going to say, just to kind of
for
piggyback
sure.
off of that, is that um, we already have, a set of challenges. Something's echoing. Is that we have our challenges already in society when we look at, okay, black woman, black man. Oh, here we go. Now he's an educated black man. Oh, she's educated black woman. There goes another. So we already have these challenges, right? That we're born into the world with. And then you have your challenges that you're going to go through your life and your journey with, which adds to that, right? And so in our community for so long, we have held on or carried unnecessary weight of having to be the strong black woman, having to be the strong black man. So it's like you don't have time to be emotional. You don't have time to feel sorry for yourself about this and that because you got so many other things that you're trying to worry about, or other hurdles that you're trying to get over, that you're like, okay, well, this one. So we were born into a situation where people just go 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 go, and that's how I grew up, where I was always been in athletics, right? So
Hmm.
that was my mask. But when I got into my adult life and started to coach and teach, and you know how it is teaching high school kids, it's like
Hmm.
they start to complain about things, and it's like, y'all have it so much easier than we had it. Like, are you serious? But it's they may not have that, what we have, where it's like we didn't have time to feel
Hmm.
sorry for ourselves. We didn't have time to complain about our struggles and our challenges because there was things to do. And so I really love the fact, as a black man, you saying, hey, I have these challenges, but you have your own set of challenges. Nobody is challenged free, right? And so uh, when people say things like, oh, well, you won't be the first and you won't be the last. Well, don't take away from my process. I don't know about the people before and the people going to be after. All I know is this is how I feel right now, and I don't like it. So we have to get to that place, and we have to allow people to be, the people that are in our space, um, have to be okay with your journey, right? And how you feel for that moment. So I know you mentioned the relationships that you built along the way that you maintain. What was it about those relationships that helped you feel um like, was that your safe place for you, where you knew like these were my riders for real? Because you obviously remain that relationship with them throughout your adult life. Talk about what it meant to be a part of something in a California at I guess a PWI, where you started to create your own community. Talk about that.
Yeah. So So on campus at USC, I was fortunate to be a part of the Black community there. Super tight knit. Um, the community there centered around one particular department, the Center for Black Cultural and Student Affairs. It was a department that was launched in the '70s. We had a small but mighty space, and now it's been uh,
It sounds like a
it's been
closet.
it's nice now. It's
Oh,
nice now, but
you
it
said
it wasn't always the
spacious.
biggest of spaces, right? But the community was big, right? And and I think uh, more than that one specific community, I'll say this about like my network now and how it's grown, just to be a little bit more helpful in what I look for and the people that I connect with. This is what I learned over time as well, is that uh, I got good at connecting with my peers first, right? Seeing who is doing what, right? If I go back to my keyword of what I was talking to Brian about, it's like being active, right? Who of my peers was being active, right? If I think about those people that were active when we were undergrads, those same people are doing some amazing things now. They've started their own companies or organizations, or they are VPs, or they're getting awards for, at this point, 40 under 40, sheesh, right? Or getting close to it, right? So active people stay active, so that's one thing. And then I think, if I think about some of my mentors, and there's a difference between mentors and champions. You can check out my podcast for that. We have a couple episodes about that, the difference between a mentor and a champion. But I have both, and those were the folks that gave me some insight about what what possibilities there were in terms of career. Um, you could be a professor, you could be a teacher, and this is what it looks like for me, right? Because I was carrying around this imposter syndrome that I got on my shirt, right? And that comes about when you step into spaces that you're uncomfortable in, right? You get uncomfortable, and you say, "Do I belong here?" And you grasp for ways and spaces to make that happen. So, if you're looking to build community now, or find a circle for yourself, look for the people that are active. Whether that's your peers or near peers, someone that's just a little bit older than you, and then pinpoint some aspirational folks and sit down with them for coffee. Right now, since we've all been on Zoom and other platforms for multiple years, now it's a can we have a quick coffee chat via Zoom? Everybody grab a tea or something like that, and spend some time with the folks that may have been in your particular situation, but now they're more comfortable and more established, right? So ask them about how they got to where they are, like we're doing on this show, right? But as you do that, you have to be intentional about seeing yourself in them, or asking them particular questions that are going to get you to move to whatever next level, whether that's like mindset, or switching your major, or making a choice to go to a particular school, right? Like, people can help you make those choices because there are people that have been there, right? A lot of times when you have imposter syndrome, you feel like you're the only one. You forget that there's thousands of other students that might be going to the same school trying to figure out the same things, right? So I guess I'll leave it there, and we can pick it back up if we need to.
Yeah, I wanted to, just listen to some of the things that you're mentioning. And Sherelle mentioned earlier about Jeff Johnson, and I remember whenever he was on our episode, I think it was towards the end of the episode, and we're talking about Mississippi, and he said that we've got to stop demonizing where we're from and find the good. connect with those who made it out and done something with their lives and see how you can leverage that. And before I left Mississippi in 2012, I left Mississippi and I moved to Miami. I had no intentions of coming back just to visit family, but as far as to live, had no intentions of coming back. But when I was living in Miami and I was seeing deficits in the child welfare system, I was seeing these teenagers not be able to make that successful transition into adulthood. I got fed up, and I could have continued down there. Got my master's degree. One of the most prevalent universities for people in the social work profession to get their master's down there is Barry University. And I could have went to Barry, but I said, you know what? I want to go back home and pour back in back at home. And when I came back here, that's exactly what I started to do, was connect with those who actually, quote unquote, made it, who are doing similar work, going in a similar direction, but seemingly they've gotten there, they've made it. And that's when I started to see myself see more light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because Dr. Hobson mentions it quite often, as far as we always hear the notion of you're a product of your environment, but you get to choose what components of your environment that you want to become a product of. You can sit there and by default fall into certain components of the environment, but if you desire to be part of the robust component of the environment, you got to go get it. Like you say, you got to take action
Right.
towards those individuals who are part of that community. So I appreciate you mentioning that, because that's so important for our young people to hear.
I think as you were talking, um, I mean, you just mentioned, people we're products of our environment. Yes, we're influenced, right? But if we step back for just a moment, right? I put my film hat on. I'm like, oh, there's a metaphor there. I'm gonna dig it out, right? Um, if we're all products of our environment, that means somebody has to consume us, right? Like, we're a consumable good. We're a consumer good, right? And so, like, we just have to be aware that no matter what our surrounding is, like, we have the opportunity for someone to consume what we're putting out there, and then also we have the opportunity to consume something else that we see, right? So that might mean, for a student, like, going to a conference that you've never been to, right? Just so that you can have the opportunity to consume something that you've never seen, and or be influenced to have you become a product of that environment, right? Um, and you don't have to be a product of an environment long for it to affect you, right? Because once your mind is exposed to things, once your mind expands, it'll never go back to the same shape or form, right? And so I think that, like, we have to give ourselves, those opportunities, not to only say that we were affected, but to remember that we're continuing to affect ourselves, right, by the spaces and places that we go to, that we choose to be in, uh, the company that we choose to keep, right? So I think all of that is important, but I think we hold on to the things that first shaped us, not remembering that, you know we can take a blueprint and change it over time if we need to. A house could always get an upgrade. You've seen a remodel before, or we've seen houses burned down and tearing down, and something else is there now, right? So think about that as we have time. We do have time to shift and change.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tell people that all the time. Like Brian said, that we
Yeah.
do that we may think, okay, well, this is just how it is, and we have so many examples now of what it is and what it's not, and we all have something of a some type of sense, feeling of, uh, yeah, maybe in your situation when it comes to money, you at some point, do you ever get tired of being broke? I mean, it's you have to start finding something, and we talk about that a lot as educators, to our to our students, of you can do all these things and you can be whatever you want to be. And so, you know well, yes, no,
Look, you can be
we
you can be
felt
whatever you want to be.
that don't mean you're
Uh,
gonna do it, but
when you focus your energy, right?
when you focus your
We
energy.
we we, we were talking even before the pod came on, right? And we are talking about some basketball grades, right? Because
Yeah.
we're talking about that because that's a point of reference for lots
Yes.
of folks of what greatness is in
Right.
sports, is in
Yes.
arts and all of that, right? But the key factor is like that's where their focus and energy was, right? Like they became great because they spent their time and their talent there,
Right.
right? They had both. They had
Right.
both talent
Right.
and they had the time to pursue, right?
Right.
And so that combination is different for everybody, but like you can't become everything, but you can become good at the things that you're talented at, times the thing that you spend the most time on.
Right.
Like you won't stay the same there, right?
Right.
So I tell people to lean into their strengths, right? Like if you find that you enjoy something and you're really good at it, stick with it
Mm-hmm.
and see what happens there,
Right.
right? You might be really great at numbers, stick there, but you might be bad at words. That means you need to have someone in your peer group, right? That's good at words, right? And so that way you can say, hey, like here's what I'm thinking, help me with this, right? It's not
Right.
that that person is gonna do everything for you, but you've pointed out a weakness that's not you know easy for you to do, and you found someone else that's their thing, right?
Right.
So you
And I
have to become aware of those things. It
Right.
takes
And
a
I
little
and
bit
I
of
and I
time.
think that you have to, first be aware or acknowledge, who you are, and be confident enough in that space to say, "Hey, I'm not that good at this, but I'm good at that." I can do this and I can share it with you. And so I think we always become overwhelmed when we think we have to have everything. You don't have to have everything. That's why there's people that are placed in your life that's going to fill in those gaps and places and deficiency of each other. Oh, you know what? You're really good at this. Or you may have to be the face, or you may have to be the writer behind the scenes, or we all can't be in the show. Maybe you got to be in the backstage. And so we have to be okay and stay focused, like you said, on the objective. What are we trying to do? If you're trying to change the narrative of our community or our young black men, we all can't do the same thing. You may have to take the back seat on one thing, but we know that you the cameraman, or we know you're gonna write the scripts. And okay, well, you, even though Brian might be good at that too, being okay with saying, okay, Brian's gonna do the graphics because he's already doing something else. So we have to learn how to get in that space where we can share, and stay focused on what the goal is, and not try to uh, outdo each other, or compete with one another. And so I want you to talk about what you're doing right now, and if you have like any events or programs or whatever you would like to share with us. Let's start talking about where that current space that you're in right now.
Yeah. Uh, so my mantra is stay motivated and rise together, right? You can go to staymotivatedandrisetogether.com. Uh, Myself and my business partner, we've put together not only a podcast similar to this, and we've been rocking strong. You can follow us at Black Social Cap on Instagram. But we just launched um, uh, an opportunity to do some accountability groups, right? Holding ourselves accountable. So I think we're doing a few sessions where folks get together, they start to share some of their goals, aspirations, and we're consistent in following up to make sure that you start to have some of that movement, right? Start to jot those ideas down. And so we've done that with ourselves. Um, over the past, I would say, 3 or 4 years, we've been, um, doing it for ourselves for sure, but intentionally about 3 or 4 years. I think that for me coming up, in working with students, I'm going to continue to pinpoint opportunities that I can give back, through my fraternity. Right now, I'm the Western Region Director of Education for Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and hope to impact students by making sure that we have our scholarships on point and giving advice as they navigate, right? As folks are trying to make their way, sometimes from a little bit away and sometimes from no way, right? Um, so all of those things are kind of coming together uh, in two ways. One, it's where are there communities where I can meet people, and then where can we collaborate to make things happen. So I think I would say that those are two big things that are on my plate in terms of what's up next. Um, I think professionally, what's next for me? Uh, who knows? I think that um, I think it's important as I think about my own next steps. Is I'll tell myself the same thing I tell others: is that you have to stay open to opportunity, so that uh, you can see it when it happens, right? So you have to actually, let me see if I have this book on my shelf. Always have some books around you. Do I have this one? No, I don't. But um, there is a book that just dropped called um, Black Faces in High Places. And
Hmm.
it's co-written by Dr. Jeffrey Robinson out of Rutgers and um, uh, Dr. Pinkett as well. You might know his name from being the winner of The Apprentice back in the day. But they say that you have to seek and then seize opportunity. You have to seek it, you have to see it, and then you have to seize it, right? And so, that's what I'm kind of latching on to these days in terms of my next steps is just kind of keeping my head on a swivel, navigating the traffic if I'm on the basketball court, and then like helping people to to win that championship in their life. So yeah, that's what I'll end with. Folks can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I'm definitely open to doing those coffee chats that I mentioned. Um, yeah, I think those are things I'll probably want to pub the most. But yeah,
Wow. Well, thank you for that. I mean, you uh, truly enjoyed would have never known any of these things, right? Just seeing um, the clips and the stuff that you put on social media. And this is why we have this platform, because it's not until you hear someone's story and their journey, you just think it just all makes sense now. Now I can see, why he's doing the things that he's doing and investing his time and the things that he invested in. And so just thank you for staying obedient. Thank you for staying the course. Thank you for being strong in your own space, because it's through your journey that we continue to grow. And we thank you for just being you, because you're doing you very well. And we truly appreciate you coming on the show,
all right. Thanks for having me again. I enjoy being here.
Brian.
Yeah, man. um,
When he starts
yeah,
rubbing his hands
just as
on his
we
Yeah,
forehead,
he was getting jealous. That's what it
when he
was.
does that, he's about
that's
to
when something good is
He
coming.
said,
he's about to be
I wish
like,
I could do
man, let me tell you,
that.
man, we don't have.
Hey, I used to be able to do that back in my day, but that's far gone. But
You just let it
uh,
struggle, and that's what happened.
like I'm 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 feeling your energy because of the alignment and a lot of the things that you're mentioning that a lot of people miss. A lot of people miss the whole you get to choose when you can change what part of the environment you want to be part of. That's one of the things a lot of times when I do a live video, I finish it off by saying, it doesn't matter what happened up until today, what your last name was known for, what people knew you of up until today. You can choose today to surround yourself with the right people and start consuming the right information. and start to live your life of purpose because your legacy begins now. And I'm glad that you continue to mention things along that vein because so many people think the environment that I see right now is the only environment that I can live out. No, change your perspective. If you can't change your environment physically, start reading books of places elsewhere, of successes elsewhere. Start watching films, start listening to music, and connecting with people like Dr. Foyles. And you can figure out, you know what, I can leave New York and go to Chicago. You know what, I can leave Chicago and go to LA. Hey, what are the boundaries now? So thank you again so much. We definitely are going to be in touch with you, seeing what we can do to collaborate and just continue to push the word out and help be that leverage for other individuals to get to where they're trying to get to. All right.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
So we'll put you backstage. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll put you backstage. We'll close out the show, and then we'll come back to you and close things out with you. All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again, my guy.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We don't have
All
to
right.
say
All
much
right.
about him. His story is amazing, and I mean, just from the very beginning when he started to talk, I was like, "This is about to be deep. His story is about to be for real, for real." And so I was just excited about hearing more about him. And we take so much time. And people think you just put people on the show. It's time that goes behind finding people in our community that, number one, we feel aligned with the purpose that we're doing, or the mission that we have, and then it's through those pictures and those postings and things, and I'm like, I want to know more about him. I don't know. I have this. It's something, some undercover gift that I discovered I had since the Black Podcast is just being able to. I'm intrigued with people's stories, and so I see one thing, I see a picture, and I'm thinking something totally different. I'm like, it's more to this person, and so that's what I felt like with him, and I just. It's amazing. It's a blessing when people um, are willing to share, like just come out naked, right, and tell you who they are and what their journey is and what their challenges are. A lot of us in our community, we're scared for people to see our journey, or what if they hear about this? What if they found out that I was bothered, or that I was depressed, or that I was stressed out, or that I had emotions, you know? Um, and so I just love when guests come on and just be open book, and I just really enjoyed hearing his story. It has definitely inspired me, and I'm sure it inspired our network of people and audience. So please make sure you do share this story. Share, share, share. You will be hearing more about him and what he's doing, but please make sure you do your part and share the story. Check him out on staymotivatedandrisetogether.com. See the things that they're doing, and we just scratched the surface of what he's doing. And so I'm sure there's some things that are like gonna blow your mind. So please make sure that you support him. Brian.
Yeah, be sure to check us out at wearehsba.com. Check out what we got going on, how you could potentially collaborate with us, support us, help push us out to those in your network. Off that note, we out. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. And y'all stay safe and stay cool. It's finally raining here, so it was like 100 degrees earlier, but
Yeah, it's hot in
I guess it's
Houston.
finally going to
So
cool down. Anyways,